everyone. I'm Emma from CEA. Welcome to our Forum AMA with Darren Margolias, who's the Executive Director of BeastPhilanthropy. I'll be asking Darren the questions that you posted on the EA Forum. For some context, BeastPhilanthropy is a YouTube channel and organization started by Mr. Beast, the most watched YouTuber in the world. During Darren's 4 years at BeastPhilanthropy, he's grown the channel to over 25 million subscribers and expanded the scope of what they do, from running food banks to building houses, funding direct cash transfers, and curing diseases. Speaking of cash transfers, BeastPhilanthropy recently collaborated with Give Directly to make a video and transfer $200,000 to Ugandans in poverty. So Darren, thanks for joining us. It's really exciting to have you and to ask all these questions. I'll start with kind of some intro context questions. Could you just give us like a quick overview of what BeastPhilanthropy does and your role?
BeastPhilanthropy started out, Jimmy's initial idea for BeastPhilanthropy was to start a channel that would generate the revenue that we needed to fund a food bank and feed our local community. And we are hopeful that if we are successful of that, we'd be able to spread it across the entire country, and, you know, maybe even our big dream, if we could start affecting in other countries as well. But we very quickly realized that there's a lot more to what we are doing than we initially contemplated, and it's grown far beyond that now. And I'm the executive director. I'm the person that gets all the blame when everything goes wrong again.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So I'm curious, in your role, what first got you interested in working in something like being an executive director for a charity?
I actually was a real estate developer. But in 2002, a friend of mine found some kittens under her front deck, and she was looking for a shelter to put them in, and we couldn't find a shelter in Atlanta that wouldn't euthanize the animals if nobody adopted them within a week. And so she undertook to find them homes, and I said that I'd pay for all of the bedding and everything, and out of that, we started an organization, an animal rescue organization, which has grown into a very large organization. It's the biggest no cage, no kill facility in the southeastern United States, and it's been very successful. Along the way, I realized that I was successful in my real estate career, and I was making a lot of money, but somewhere along the way I realized that I wasn't enjoying it at all. And the endless pursuit of making more money was not something that it really held much appeal. In 2008, I had a realization that I wanted to do more in my life than work really hard and buy stuff that didn't make me happy. And that the one thing that had brought me a huge amount of fulfillment and enjoyment was the animal project. And that made me recontemplate the direction and what I was doing with my life, and decided to sell a real estate portfolio and just start doing things that mattered to me, and but on a very small scale, never dreaming that I'd have any real effect, big effect. But we built the animal charity, and then I started another charity for autistic kids that were very severely affected on the autism spectrum. And I was just going about my life doing that, and then I got a phone call one day from Jimmy's CEO, and I didn't even know who Mr. Beast was at the time. And he asked me to come up and meet Jimmy, and he told me that they wanted to get every dog in a dog shelter adopted, and they were considering our shelter. But when I got up to North Carolina, I met Jimmy, and I started giving him the presentation right away, and he's like, I'm not interested in that. We've already approved the video. It's being done at your shelter. You're here for another reason. And I said, what is it? And he said, I'm going to start a charity, and you're the guy that's going to do it.
Wow.
And I was quite surprised. I was like, do you want an animal shelter? And he said, no. And he described BeastPhilanthropy I couldn't understand what had appealed to me about appealed to Jimmy about me, but later in the conversation, he was like, "Look, I know you're very successful before, and I know that you walked away from a very high-end career to do charity, and that tells me that you're the person that I want to run Beast Philanthropy."
Wow, that's really cool. That's a very cool backstory to how you ended up here. Um, yeah. So a little bit about the work that you've done so far. Curious what kind of data you collect on the projects that you've run so far, and do you know how many people you've helped in the years that you've been there now?
It's difficult to measure, but if you don't mind, I want to explain what Beast Philanthropy is, because a lot of people
Oh,
don't
sure.
actually understand what we are. What we are trying to do now with Beast Philanthropy, and this was something that became very apparent to us in the first few months that we were running it, was that the channel was having a profound impact on the people that were watching it. And we have a very strong audience, but it skews towards the younger side. Um, our primary demographic is 18 to 23 years old, but when I walk around in public, it's 8-year-olds come running up. We just don't get data from YouTube on anybody under the age of 13. But we started getting a lot of feedback from parents around the world, and they're telling us some amazing things that their kids were doing because they'd been watching the channel. Other people were emailing us and telling us that they were going and volunteering every weekend. And we very quickly realized that Beast Philanthropy was much more important than the work that we are doing, was the message that we are spreading. And that I even was at Jimmy's house one night, and he said to me, "I'm going to put $1 billion into the philanthropy checking account one day, and I'm not even going to tell you when I do." I said to him, "It's not going to make any difference." And he looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Why not?" And I said, "The US government spends close to $2 trillion a year in social spending. If they're spending $2,000 billion a year and they're not fixing any problems, money is not the solution. Getting people to care about other people, getting people to get involved and help other people out, if we can engage a much, much wider audience, um, they will have far more impact than if we try to convince people to give more money." Um, and that is what we need to strive to do, is to encourage our audience to start um, learn about the issues that are challenging humanity across the planet, and consider new approaches to old problems, and also uh, build engagement and participation at a much wider scale. I'd much rather see $100 million people giving $2 a month than one person giving $50 million a year. If we can motivate people and we can show them that the small little contributions that they make, when added together with hundreds of millions of other people, that is an approach that might work, that it probably will. If we each take responsibility um, to do our little bit, um, then maybe we'll actually start moving the needle on human suffering across the planet. Um, Last year was a good year for us because we built the 120 wells in Africa, and that will serve a population of 500,000 people. We also distribute about 2 million pounds of food a month, and that feeds approximately 325,000 people. So if you look at it and you say, and I acknowledge that this is a stretch, but even if you say that we helped 1 million people last year, um, when you take 1 million and you divide it by 8 billion, you don't have a very big number. All of us, no matter how much we do, are affecting very small pockets of the population that needs help around the world. Um, and if we can build wider participation in within the populations, and people stop saying, "This is the government's problem to fix," or "This is the NGO's problems to fix, and I'm not going to do anything about it myself," we're never going to have an effect globally at the scale that we need to. So that's what we are trying to do with Beast Philanthropy, is we consider the messaging, the influence, the education that we are able to broadcast much more important than the work that we do. And I do not in any way want to diminish that we always, when we go into a community, want to do best by the community. We want to serve them in the most appropriate, most long-lasting, best way that we can. But that's a small part of a bigger picture.
I mean, yeah, that resonates a lot as well of, yeah, I think a lot of us, if we're lucky to have a roof over our head and have food and right, having a mindset of what can we give back and how can we, yeah, how can we help other people, and trying to encourage that mindset in other people to pause and think, oh, what can I, yeah, what can I do to help other people and alleviate human suffering? And right, there's so many different kinds of ways. And obviously with the reach that you have, that like, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that would be a component of what you're thinking about. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I'm going to dive in now to the specific questions from the AMA, and I'll try and give a shout to the different people that asked them. A lot of different users asked about your approach. What's your approach to finding giving opportunities and evaluating different opportunities? And particularly about what does the decision-making process look like for that? And do you use research? Do you think about the local versus global giving components, cost effectiveness, things like that?
We do think about all of that, but there's a few different extra considerations that we have to take in everything. I mean, the first thing is that we want to be authentic and with our giving. We want to go and we want to have a meaningful impact on the lives of marginalized and vulnerable people that are suffering in the world. Like, but you know, we also, one of the primary things that we consider is this an issue that people are aware of? And is this an issue that people actually care about? You know, I think that everybody knows that there are kids in Africa that go without clean drinking water, go without any water during the dry season for, extended periods of time. But it's not at the front of their mind. It's not an emotional human connection that they have to the problem. It's an academic thing that they think about and then they don't think about it. It's in their mind, but they don't think about it. They don't know what their approaches are. So we look for it and we look if there's a way for us to tell a story that will get them to care about the issue in a way that they haven't before. And if we can get them to care about it, then we can inspire them to do something about it. So the first component is definitely help the community. The second component is use that as a way to educate the massive audience that we have about what it is in a way that other people have failed to do. And I'll come back to that, but when if a teacher gets up and has a lesson plan for a class one day and they're going to talk about the lack of clean drinking water around the world, kids are going to hear it. It's not going to resonate with them. Or very few of them are going to connect to it. But when we go in and we do a video and we try to show, these are amazing kids. You go into these villages and the kids are so sweet and they're all over you. They're so excited. They're so welcoming. They want you to go play with them. When we show that on camera, the audience starts liking those kids, caring about those kids. But then when they see those kids now drinking dirty river water, it hits differently. They start to care about the issue more because they care about these kids. And if we engage the people in a story, we show them something that they can relate to on it as human beings relate to one another instead of academic bullet points that other people try to force down the throat and wonder why they're not effective. Then we can make a difference. And while we're speaking about water, I built 2 wells in Cameroon 3 years ago. That was the first steps into the water security issue. Just from that video now, we have 299 documented wells that have been built because of just from that video, where people have reached out to us and said, this video inspired me. And my company has now built 20 wells in India. Another YouTuber has built 59 wells himself over the last 3 years. And, so we go and we show 2 wells in a way that we get people to care about it, and they go and they pick up the thing, and they go do their little piece. They do fundraisers or whatever, and they go and they build wells, and there are 299 that we can document already, and there's a lot more coming. Just to clarify back on your question, it's very important to us to find issues that people that don't resonate very strongly with people and get them to resonate very strongly. We want to educate them. We want to show them that there are solutions. We want to get them to consider solutions that they might not have thought were good ideas in the beginning, but show them that they do actually work. Hopefully that leads to inspiration where they go and they take the baton and they run with it. And I'll draw this back to the video that we did with you guys. When Tyler originally approached me and asked me if we were interested in doing a direct cash giving program, I really thought it was a terrible idea. Now, why did I think it was a terrible idea? Because, I was thinking more, I hadn't been exposed to the issue. So my inclination is like, oh, well, I've heard so many stories about people winning the lottery and it destroying their lives. And wouldn't that be the same? I mean, if we go and give relative to their lifestyle, a large cash grant to a population that has been very impoverished for generations, would it not have the same effect? Tyler explained it to me and he showed me some of the data and everything like that. And I was like, wow, this is actually interesting. And this is one of the things that I want to do at the channel, is I want people to consider new approaches. I mean, I love the project that we did together. Once somebody opened my eyes to the effect that it could have, it converted me. It converted, I think we're probably at 19 or 20 million views on the video by now. But that's one of the things that I want to educate people about the issues, about the novel solutions, about things that they might think is a bad idea, but it's based on intuition rather than data, or So that's what I try to do with the channel.
So this question from Hugh is a bit related of what kinds of charities perform the best in terms of views or engagement, and do any of those kinds of factors of funds raised or engagement reviews, things like that, affect which charities you end up picking for future videos?
Component of it is always going to be, is this going to be a topic that we can tell the story the way that we want to, that we know is going to work? And unfortunately, not every topic is going to be really interesting to a broad audience. And in order for this whole thing to be successful, in order for this over years to expose people to hundreds of different challenges and solutions and everything like that, we have to consider whether the content is going to be entertaining or not. Now, let me stop there and just clarify. Jimmy doesn't care about the views on the channel. When people say, oh, he just does it for the views, or they have that skepticism, Jimmy gets around 3.3 billion views a month on his main channel. And we get 50 or 60 million views a month on the philanthropy channel. It's usually 1.5% or something. It's on a pie chart, it would be such a thin slice. And for the amount of time and effort that has to be in, Jimmy has to put into the philanthropy, when he could be using it, doing other things that would get him more views, earning money, because we don't earn any money. It actually, Jimmy invests heavily in the philanthropy. The only reason that we care about the views is that I consider every single time that a person watches one of our videos, it's a seed planted in their own minds. It's a way of teaching them that charity is not a sacrifice. Volunteering is not a burden. This is something that, we all have a responsibility and an ability to contribute to solutions ourselves, and to teach them that. So from that perspective, I have to consider whether the topic that we are doing is going to be interesting and that we can tell a story in an interesting way. we have found that some of the topics that we have covered before, distributing clothing to warm winter clothing to populations that desperately need it, doesn't get a very strong engagement. Food-related topics don't get a very strong engagement, you know. So that is a factor. Now we still will do them. We have a project coming up where we'll be focusing on addiction. And from the anecdotal experience that I have, there's a tier list of the charities that people are most inclined to contribute to. Addiction is near the bottom of the scale over there because I think that a lot of the general population look at addicts and consider it a moral failure of these people, and they don't deserve support or sympathy, or you know. But when you actually start exploring the issue, you find that there are so many reasons that really good people land up in the trap of addiction because they had an injury or because something it went catastrophically wrong in their life. And nobody ever, when they're growing up as a kid, looks at an addict living on the streets and says, "That's what I want to do when I grow up." You know, the if we understand why these people are in the situation where they are, when we humanize the people suffering from it, then maybe we can start building the way that they care about it. But, you know, so some of the topics we go into, we're not sure whether, I don't know if people will click on that video and watch it. I certainly hope they will. My own eyes have been open to the issue. And I hope that we can do it for other people. But you know, so we do need to look for content that is going to be powerful and engaging, but for the reasons of in order to, if I pick boring subject matter, and then you know, people start thinking that the philanthropy channel is boring, we lose the opportunity to engage with them, you know, hundreds of times over the next 5 years. So to that extent, it is important for us to consider the topics.
I guess a related question, which might be a bit of a follow-up from forum user Toby, says, do you think there's a trade-off between finding the best ways to help people and making the best videos? I think you're gesturing at this a little bit, but how do you navigate maybe that trade-off between those?
No, I don't think so. I think that, you know, there could be, but there are so many issues in the world, and there are so many ways that people are suffering, and there are so many lessons to teach and ways to inspire people that it's not like that we have a lack of topics that need to be addressed. So if I have one or the other and all else is the same, but I think that one is going to be more engaging or more powerful or more effective, I'm going to pick that one. If we only had a handful of issues that challenged the world and the humanity, then we'd do them all. But there's so many, and it's easy for us to find something that meets all of the marks. Yes, it's a population that desperately needs help. We can offer relief. We can educate people. We can inspire people. Then we'll select the one that helps us in the best way possible.
Forum user Sebastian says they noticed that the Give Directly video in particular has, I think, 19 or 20 million views, but that the fundraiser associated with it hasn't reached, I think maybe at the time was close to like a third of the total goal. And related to this, some other people also asked, how do you think about that challenge of turning people watching the video into them donating or them, you know, doing something in the world and causing action? Yeah, how do you think about sort of that problem of somebody watches the video, what do they do next? Yeah.
You know, in pushed through the donations. It's not our primary objective, and I'm much more interested in people watching the video and understanding the lesson that we are conveying than them making a donation. The donations we put on there, we don't push very hard for it, but we're not trying to use the channel to fundraise in that way. an add-on rather than the purpose. You know, so um, we always, on any of the projects that we do, almost every video is sponsored by a brand that wants to it wants access to our audience because they want to promote a product that they have, and we can, because we have such a large engagement, um, we can charge quite a lot of money for those ads, and that is the money. So on the Give Directly project, we made the donation of $200,000 to Give Directly, and anything that we get beyond that is a bonus. But something that has happened with most of the videos that we've done is there. When you have 30 million people watch a video, there's going to be people that can help, that learn about the issue and want to get want to contribute. And I can say in almost every single case, if not every single case, there has been a consequence that we didn't anticipate, where somebody comes in and says, "We're going to do this," or "We're going to help with this," or and some of them the government even saw the work that was being done and how necessary it was, and they stepped in. One of the organizations that we worked with that was on the verge of shutting down because of lack of funds. Um, we undertook to fund them for a year so that they'd have a bridge to try and um, build the support. But somebody in the government in the country saw the video and they've stepped in and they've guaranteed it for 30 years. You know, so it's it. It's nice. I love it when we raise a lot of money. In most of the fundraisers that we attach to the videos, the money is collected with Give Directly. The money goes directly to Give Directly. It doesn't come through us. In some of the videos, the very last video that we posted from Zambia, she is not registered with the Google network to collect funds, so we'll collect on her behalf, but 100% of what we collect will go to her. So we're not even utilizing the fundraisers that we attach to the videos for ourselves. We're using it for the cause that we are featuring. But it's always a bonus, not the reason for. And then also with regard to the video that we did with Give Directly in Uganda, somebody who saw the video is now matching up to $150,000 to get you to the $150,000 target that you had. They are now doubling any donation that comes in. So there's that. And we just recorded this morning a short piece that we'll put on our Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn, other channels, and we'll promote the matching thing. And so hopefully we get there. Like I say, that's I consider anything that we get a bonus.
Yeah, that's helpful, because I think the next question I was going to ask was from Jason, who was wondering where you see most of the impact of your work coming from, and right, that it sounds like there could be different avenues of, yeah, whether that's viewer donations or donating to BeastPhilanthropy versus directly to the charities. But yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is yeah, not necessarily the direct call to action per se, but like planting the seed of people learning more about the issue and understanding it, and then also the sort of the spirit of generosity or charity that you're encouraging through the video seems like the main route to impact that you're describing.
Absolutely. I mean, again, to come back to the Wales one, because it's such a good example. But I don't even know if we collected money in that video. I can't remember. It's insignificant. Usually we raise $15,000 to $50,000. 299 wells being built so far because of that video. That's much more impactful in the water security issue than any amount of money that we would have raised.
So Form User Powder asks what quantitative goals you have for your work and how do you measure success in this kind of work?
So now that you understand what my goal is, and that is to inspire the next generations, it's very difficult for us to measure that. YouTube is mostly a one-way communication platform. So, unless somebody puts something, and we get 26,000 average comments per video. So we can't even read all the comments on the video, but we see people talking about um, that they're inspired or they went and did something, but we're going to miss most of those. But I would like to have a better way of collecting that data. But when we started realizing, anecdotally, we started getting a lot of feedback from people around the world about the effect it was having that, you know, on Thanksgiving, some guy emailed me and said that his 7 and 8 year old daughter came and asked if they could box up all of the food, the leftovers, and they fed 15 homeless people and a cat that night. Or, another guy uh, emailed and asked for our wiring instructions, and he sent $50,000. I didn't know who he was or anything. I emailed him back and I said, "Can I get on the phone and at least thank you?" And got on the phone with him and I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, tell me about your organization." And I said, "Well, what do you want to know? I'll start there. I don't want to bore you with what you already know." And he said, "No, absolutely nothing." And I said, "Well, why would you give us $50,000 then?" And he said, "Because my 13-year-old daughter, who has not spent a cent of any of the money that she's earned since she was 7 years old, went and donated it all to a dog shelter last week because she saw a video that you did on a dog shelter." And he said, "If you can have that effect on my daughter, then I want to know who you are and what you're doing." And um, that kind of stuff. But I would like to be able to more quantitatively measure it. So we started thinking about it, and I call everything that we have done to date, where we go and we undertake these projects, and we make videos about it, and we hope that they um, germinate, these ideas germinate across the planet. That are called passive inspiration. We're now moving into something that are called active inspiration. What happens if we incentivize and drive our audience, if we give them reason and purpose and in a way that we can measure it? So we have now designed an app that takes everything that we know about engagement and gamification and competition, socialization, collaboration, um, puts it all together into an app that kids will use, and the only way that they can play this game and they can compete against one another, or they can form teams, or they can challenge other teams. It's really an engaging app, but the only way that they can participate it is by volunteering, fundraising, or donating. And we can now track. We have tied into some other databases of volunteer opportunities around the world, and so in the app, you can go and you can pick a volunteer opportunity, and and we can authenticate whether they did what they said they were going to do as well. And um, by doing that, not only are we driving their engagement, but we're also measuring it. So the app is something I'm super excited about. It's in development right now. It started out as an idea for a single video, and as we're developing it and as we're showing it to other people, now like, this is incredible. And um, we stopped the development for the video, and we are now developing it as a full platform, and it will launch sometime next year. And I truly think that this thing is going to be transformational. It's pretty amazing. And we've got some of the best consultants in the world that have um, been involved in some of the most viral, most used applications, teaching us and consulting with us, and it's going to be really cool.
We'll have to keep an eye out. You said early next year? Early next year?
Hopefully, yeah.
Hmm.
It's complicated, but we've got a very, very big software. A software tycoon is the one that who saw the concept of the app, and he was like, I'll pay for the whole thing."
Yeah. One quick question from Nuno is, what's the rough amount that you plan to give out each year?
It's a really good question. It depends on how many videos I can push out and what I can charge. It's difficult for me to project things. We are growing at such an exponential rate that I've realized that every time I set goals, even 3 months out, we exceed them by 3 times within that period. And as the channel it grows, the appreciation for it spreads. We can charge more money on the sponsorship slots that we sell. We've also got some new opportunities where to monetize differently than any other way that people have monetized on YouTube before. That we are waiting for some changes in the way that Google and YouTube work. But we'll be able to take advantage of it, and we should be able to at least double what the revenue that we earn on every video. But we will spend as much as we can. Well, I'm very, very proud of the fact that we give 96% of all of the revenue that we have directly to the programs that we're doing. We are only spending 4% of the on the administrative side of things. We don't have luxury anything. I don't have nice offices. I have a corner of the warehouse that we keep the props in for main channel. Have a strong belief just from my own past that people, when they make a donation, they want to see a large percentage going to the cause that they're giving it to. They don't want to see it going to expense accounts and there's a lot of big charities that spend more on mail every year than our entire budget is. So I don't want to be like that. I want to be an organization that puts as much back into the work that we do as we possibly can. So the more we can earn, the more we'll give. But I'd love to see BeastPhilanthropy, in the $75 million range in the next year or two, and exceed 100 million within 3 years. But and I think we'll get there. We're definitely tracking towards it.
So Grace Adams asks, would Jimmy or the business ever consider taking a public pledge to give a certain amount to effective charities, like the 10% pledge, where you give 10% of your income until you retire to charities improving the lives of others? She also gave some examples of different people that have done this. Chris Anderson, who's the head of TED, YouTuber Ali Abdal, a number of people who have done this, and that they've also inspired more than 1,500 other people to pledge and give in this way. So she's curious about whether you would ever consider doing something like that.
Jimmy has publicly said a bunch of times that he intends to give away everything. And I think that he will. With the staggering wealth that Jimmy has been able to generate, he lives a very modest life. Jimmy lives in, it's a normal house in a normal neighborhood. You would never in a million years think that was a house that he lived in. He doesn't drive any fancy car. He drives a very reasonable car. We probably buy 40 or 50 Lambos a year, and we blow them up with tanks and throw them over into hydraulic presses and give them away to people. But he doesn't drive one himself, and he never will. That's not Jimmy. And he has a number of times publicly said that it's his intention to give away everything. But at the stage that he is at now, Jimmy is investing everything back into his growth. It's amazing what he's building and what he's accomplished. He's just turned 26 years old. But at this particular stage, as much as he can, he invests back into all of his businesses and endeavors. But he still gives a very generous amount of money away every year.
So there were lots of different questions about whether you'd consider working in different areas and under what conditions you might consider different causes. So thought I'd just go through them individually because they're all a little bit different. Yeah, one of them was whether, and I don't know if you're familiar with the organization GiveWell, but one of them was whether you would consider working with GiveWell to do something like delivering malarial bed nets or vitamin A supplementation.
Yeah, I probably get around 200 solicitations a day for people asking us to do projects with them. And, we have right now probably 14 different projects that are on the schedule. 8 of them are actively, in some of the projects that we do take a year, maybe even longer to do. We're building a burn center in Ukraine. That takes a year to build, you know. But there are so many different causes and so many different issues that we want to touch on. Very familiar with GiveWell, very familiar with how effective anti-malarial and anti-parasitic medications are and the impact that they have. And yeah, as fast as we can crank the videos out and undertake the projects, and we'll keep on doing as much as we possibly can with the broadest diversity. And one of the things that I also want to do is I do not want to advocate this is better than that, or I'm not an expert. I'm not qualified to make those determinations, but I want to teach people, find the thing that you care about, investigate it yourself, learn about it, and participate in it. And interestingly enough, I gave a speech a couple of weeks ago, and it was a bunch of very successful people that all go away on a trip together, and they bring their families with them, and they have a number of speakers. And I was a speaker over there, and the hall was full, but there were, I think every child that had come with their parents came to watch the speech because it was beast related, and which they said they had never seen a single kid in attend one of the lectures before. But 6-year-old girl got up and she said, what should I do to help? And I said, that's not for me to tell you. And this is what my whole philosophy is with the channel. I want everybody to consider all of the things. Find the thing that speaks to you the most. Find a charity that you think is doing the best job addressing the issue. And if you can't find a charity that's doing it in the best way that you think it should be done, if you have an idea to try something else, go and try that. I said, I don't want to answer this because I don't want to confine you to a way of thinking. I want every person to find the way that they are. A lot of the stuff that we are now focusing on the videos is trying to highlight the ordinary people who become extraordinary people because they do one thing. One of my favorite projects that we did was with a kid that had 50 meal swipes left over at the end of the semester on his food card, and it irritated him that it was going to go to waste. So he went and he swiped out 50 meals, and he went and he gave it out to homeless people, and that ignited a spark in him. And now I think this year he's going to distribute more than 40 million pounds of food, and he's seeded other operations around the world now, and each one of those 5 years will be doing 40 or 50 million pounds of food. And it's these new ideas, and the way that he does it is he looked at all of the food that is produced and goes into a landfill before it goes into somebody's plate, and said, this is ridiculous. We grow enough food to feed every food insecure person in the entire country, but we don't deliver it. So he figured out where to plug in, how to create a solution to capture the food before it goes to the landfill. A huge amount of produce is sent to landfills while it's still got, a week to 2 weeks of before it goes bad. But a retailer doesn't want to buy apples if they've only got 9 days shelf life on it. So the start of the 9th day, it gets shipped to a landfill. Well, if we could get that to a food bank instead of a landfill, and so there's so many innovative ways that we can approach old problems and do that kind of stuff. So sorry, I there. I don't even remember what the original question was, but
Well, I think, yeah, there were a number of questions, and maybe I'll ask you a few other categories. I think, yeah, people I think seem to have a general curiosity about which kinds of issues, or, are you open to different topics, or right, making videos about different topics. And it sounds like you have a general approach of openness of like, yeah, let's, want to show a range of things. One area that a few people asked about was charity for animals and animal welfare, and particularly around factory farming. And it sounds like you have a background in working with animals. So yeah, I'd be particularly curious if that's something that you thought about.
Um, Well, for my own personal thing, I started with an animal shelter. That was how I discovered my own appreciation for charity, um, and it is still a very important topic to me. The cat is lying at my feet over here right now, and you know, so we did do a project last year where we expanded a dog shelter and gave them a lot of the resources that they needed to continue. Um, we are currently working on two projects that are animal related. I haven't done anything factory farming yet. I would like to. Another thing that I have to consider on all of the topics that we do is whether we'd be violating YouTube terms of service. Obviously, we don't want to cross the line, and not factory farming would not be one of those. But there are some topics, if we get into human trafficking or things like that, that it becomes a gray area about whether YouTube would object to it or not, to give us a channel strike. So some topics are, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to address them, it's going to be too upsetting to the audience. I also have to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of our audience is our kids, and I don't want to give them anything that traumatizes them. You know, again, factory farming is not a perfect example, but I've got to be careful in some of the issues that are more graphic or more setting about how we do it in a way that isn't. I don't ever want people to watch one of our videos and feel depressed or sad. I don't mind if we take them through an emotional journey on the thing, but I always want to leave them feeling uplifted, and that's going to be a consideration in it. But if we could do something really effective, if we could tell the story in a great way, farming is something that would definitely need to be addressed.
Yeah, maybe related, and I'd be curious. I have sort of a follow-up question to this. Was one category of work that people were curious about was work that might be less flashy, or work that is harder to explain. So somebody talked about child immunizations in particular, that this is really cost-effective and scalable, but it's not particularly flashy to, show that a child did not get a disease 6 months after they were vaccinated or something. And so this person was curious about what ways do you creatively work through those kinds of challenges to make the work seem compelling when it might be an area that is harder to explain or like less flashy in some way?
Yeah, showing children getting immunized and saying that they didn't get sick, it would not be an engaging video. But showing a kid that didn't get vaccinated and did get sick does tell a story. So there are approaches to go there, but there's also sensitivity. There's a handful of people. We do see criticism online about our approach, and I tell people, like, on YouTube we have a 99.6 positive rating, which is unprecedented. It's incredible. But that means that 0.4% of people, for whatever reason, don't like our approach or don't like the way that we do content. It's a tiny, tiny little population. But when we have 25 million subscribers, that means that there's 100,000 people that disagree with our approach. And they'll go and they make noise on Twitter and everything, and they criticize us. And, so we have to be very cognizant of the approach that we take, and we don't ever want to be exploitive. We don't ever want to. This is not about patting ourselves on the back or generating revenue or getting views or getting famous or anything. Jimmy doesn't need any of that. Jimmy's got all of that he wants with the main channel. We do have to we do have to find ways that we can do it in a respectful and dignified way for the people that we are using in the video, to not do it in a way that they feel exploited or embarrassed or anything like that. And sometimes you've got to figure out where that line is, and not cross that line. I don't really. It's never our intention to exploit in any way. We don't make it. Jimmy invests millions of dollars into the philanthropy a year, and the time that Jimmy invests into the philanthropy is probably more valuable than the money that he invests. But we have to be careful that we're not being exploitive on the population. We never do. I mean, it's never a condition that we will only treat you if you're in the video. That's ridiculous. When we did 1,000 blind people, we actually did 1,771 blind people. There were maybe 6 or 7 characters that we featured in the video. That means that there are 1,764 that got cataract surgery that weren't in the video. It's never a precondition that you have to be in the video. It's never a coercion. It's actually the complete opposite. We go to a place and everybody wants to be in the video, and particularly when they understand that their participation in the video is going to help other people because of our model, and more people that watch, the more money we make, the more people we help, and people understand that. But yeah, if we could tell a story about vaccination by showing the effects if you don't get vaccinated, but making sure that we don't cross lines.
Yeah. Another question in this category was if you ever think about, and I'm curious because I think you just have a lot of videos, so I can't say that I've watched every single video. But do you ever think about maybe scaling up or going back to projects or work that you've done and maybe scaling up those projects or reinvesting and, back into the work that you've done before?
Absolutely. The very last video that we did, we came across, she's a TikToker. Her name is Darren, and she an extraordinary woman. She lives in Zambia. She lived in, a big city over there. She is educated. She actually got a job. She was going to move to China, and she had a job in China. Had a life set ahead of her. Went with one of her friends that came from a rural village in Zambia, and went to go spend a week with her there. And she saw some things that were going on with the kids over there that really upset her, and she decided that she was moving out there and she was going to start a sanctuary for these kids. And she's built a school there, and she's just an incredible person. And she raises all of the funds on her TikTok account, but they didn't have electricity. And we saw Dora, and I was so impressed with her. And we decided that we were going to put a solar power array for her. So we ordered a solar power array, and when it had been installed, we went to go and visit her. And when we went there, we saw that there was so much more that they could use. Like they didn't have clean water, or enough water or anything. So we went back. We tripled their solar capacity. We did a proper hydrological study. We put a proper well in. We put Starlink in because they didn't have any communications. We bought her a new car. We saw that there was more that needed to be done there, and we went back. But I do have to be careful. I want to help as much as we can. And it's really difficult because every single project that we do, I'd love to support them in ongoing for forever. But I do want to spread our resources, as far as we can. And more than that, I also want to draw attention to more organizations. So going back to the same one over and over, because the videos are such a big part of our revenue engine. Um, when I go and I feature the same place, more than once, it's an opportunity lost to highlight another organization doing incredible work somewhere else in the world, another issue that needs attention. So it's hard. I mean, there's no easy. I think one of the things that frustrates me the most is people are so critical. They see the world in binary terms, but when you're actually trying to think about how to deliver the most impact in the best way possible, you realize there is no black and white. There's 10,000 shades of gray. And I don't know what the best answer is, and I never have said that we know the best answer to any of these questions. The only thing that I want to highlight is for every person out there to consider it, think about the issue themselves, and find the way that appeals to them or they think is the best one. All I want to do is I want to get more people participating.
That's that's very relatable. I'm just nodding. Like it
Yeah,
is just, when you start thinking about it that way, right? Where you're like, wow, there's so much that you could do to help, and obviously you all have a ton of resources and like, an engine to do that. And so yeah, those decisions aren't easy. It's not always black and white to what the path forward is. Maybe just in this bucket of questions, are there any causes or kinds of work that you'd be excited to do more of, or that you haven't done that you're maybe something that's coming up in the videos that you said it, queued up this year or something?
every one of them is exciting in its own way. I don't know that there's any particular thing that it would say warrants any more attention over any other issue. But as long as we go there and we do things that actually make a difference and help the population in a meaningful and sustainable way, we have a lot of opportunities where people come to us and say, "Hey, let's do the biggest food distribution in history, and we can bring these players to the table, and we can go and give food to 2 million people in 1 week." And I'm like, "That's great." For 2 weeks after that. But what happens when they run out of food? If I don't want to do one and dones. I want to I'd much rather build a school and give a major food distribution one time. The school will affect the community for decades. The kids that get educated in the school will affect their community. We favor projects more like that. But no, there's no single cause. I mean, we've got so many things. Just thinking about the projects that we have coming up, and there are some incredible projects that I'm really excited about. They're all very diverse.
So one sort of practical question from forum user W Troy, it says, is there a way for organizations to apply or get on your radar if they'd want to partner with you?
They can email me at darren@beastphilanthropy.org, and I'm happy to look at it. Like I said, there's a we get a couple hundred a day of charities reaching out to us, people reaching out to us, and everything. And we do sort of consider them, put them into a database, and as we have capacity, but we can only do, up until now, we've done 18 videos a year as a target. We are now moving to 24 videos a year. Um, but that's only 24 opportunities. That's 10% of what I get in one day. I wish that we could do much more, but
Yeah.
it's impossible. But like every now and then I get something. Somebody will send something, and I click on it, and I'm like, yeah, forget the waiting list. This one's going to the top. Like we doing this one right now. There's an issue that was brought to me about child slavery, and when I saw it, it was so breaking that I immediately sent it to our coordinator, and I said, find a way to get this on the schedule as soon as we possibly can. But yeah, just email me your best ideas.
Yeah, maybe my follow-up question, I think a little bit related to, it seemed like people in general were curious about when you're looking at the inbox, what are the things that, like, how do you make decisions of those hundreds of possible opportunities? How do you narrow that down?
Well, the first thing is always do right by the community that we are going to serve. So it has to be something where we go and we help and we do it in a way that is actually going to benefit the community in a meaningful way, and it's going to be long lasting. That's the first filter. Then beyond that, is this an issue that it that people are generally aware of? Or is it something that people aren't aware of? I mean, there's a lot of things that we come across. I've been more inclined towards charity for a long time than a lot of other people have, and yet there are still issues that I'd never even thought of before. Like one of them that we did a couple of years ago was learning about kids that are born on the streets or in very poor communities in global South countries. They never, if they're not born in a hospital, they never get official paperwork. They are not citizens of their own country. They can't register for school. They can't open up a bank account. They can't get a passport. They can't get an education, all because they are undocumented in their own countries. It's an issue that I never has never even had crossed my mind. Um, But so if we find something that's and I think is an important issue for people to understand, that's going to move it up a notch. If there's a subject matter that I know that I can tell a good story, a compelling story that we can utilize the channel to its full potential, that's going to elevate it a notch. If I know that I've got partners that would come into that particular project with us, either a company it's is sometimes easy. Some of the issues relate to some of the people that would be interested in advertising on the thing. So it makes a lot of sense if we're talking about internet to maybe approach a company like Starlink or something like that and ask them if they would sponsor the video. If I know that I've got some help on the financial side of that, that will elevate it. There's so many different considerations that go into it. But we just go through it, but unfortunately, there's so many opportunities to pick from that we never have it.
Yeah, perfect. So one question that John Salter asked, I think someone else as well asked this, was how could the effective altruism community be useful to you in helping you do more good? They wondered if there are any particular challenges to your work right now. Some of the examples they gave were donations, roles that you're trying to fill, big unanswered questions that affect your philanthropy. People were curious how they could help.
Well, I'll start off by saying that your community is already doing the thing that is the most important to me, and that is it being involved, doing something, I love that. I love it when you come across people who do care about these things already and are looking for ways to contribute. I like it, when we originally started Beast Philanthropy, it was the idea was much smaller than what it grew into. I say we had no idea when we started this what it was, but Beast Philanthropy knew what it was and it showed us what it was. And we're in this position now where I realize that we have this incredible effect on a massive population, and we can change the way that three generations think: millennials, Gen Zs, and Gen Alphas. We can literally have an incredible impact on them and we can change these kids, especially through the app that we have, that we are developing. I say that I believe that most people are kind, but they don't know it. They haven't had the opportunity to discover it for themselves. And that's why we want to use the app. I want to use the app to get people to go in and have that experience of what it feels like, that when you go and you do something for a cause that you care about, you feel better. You enjoy it. You realize that giving is also receiving. So I found that unprecedented position to affect so many people, tens of millions of people. Jimmy has 640 million subscribers cross-platform now. And he's doing a lot of philanthropic content. And when you're talking about 640 million people, or let's just call it 450 so that we remove duplicates if somebody is subscribed to him on TikTok and YouTube. But and they're in a narrow age range that we are talking to most of the young people in the world at this point, and they love Jimmy. Everybody trusts him and loves him and listens to him. The cynicism when he says something isn't there, they accept it as. But we find ourselves in such an extraordinary position that we hadn't anticipated or planned for, and just like every other charity, um, the more money we have, the more resources that we have, the more we can do, and the further we can take this. And I didn't want to, when Jimmy offered me this job, I didn't want to take it. I had worked really hard when I was young, sold my company, I started doing the charity work, but it did what I enjoyed doing. I went skydiving every weekend and I traveled all the time and went out with my friends every night, and I didn't want to give that all up. And I told him eventually that I'd do it, but I would start Beast Philanthropy because when Jimmy said to me that he'd been looking for somebody for 2 years and he hadn't found somebody until he came across me, I went to bed that night and I kept on thinking, if I say no and Jimmy doesn't find somebody else, and his career continues on the trajectory that it's on, what would happen if I said no and Beast Philanthropy never started? That would make me the most selfish person in the world. And so I told him the next day that I would consider doing it and I would form the organization, build it, and then hand it off to somebody else. But when we started realizing how much impact we are having beyond the work that we are doing, that was when I started realizing how important and powerful this is. And I don't want to see this opportunity get wasted because I think that the world needs it. The the way that we think as human beings now, with everybody being so selfish and thinking about themselves all the time and trying to accumulate as much as they can for themselves, it comes at the expense of other people. Um, you can't have people that have got billions and billions of dollars without having, tens of thousands of people that are living in poverty. And if we can have an effect on people and teach them to give not everything that they've got, I'd never advocate for that. But if we could teach people to give a little bit of what they've got, if you've got, instead of buying a $250 pair of sneakers, go and buy a $200 pair of sneakers and buy 2 pairs of sneakers and go give them to homeless people, and give one Saturday morning and Sunday morning every quarter, go volunteer for a thing. If we can start getting people to think just a little bit more about sharing rather than having, nobody has to give a lot. If everybody, many more people give a little bit. It became really important to me, and it's very important to me to see this through because we have a lot of other opportunities now to open Beast Philanthropy. There's a lot of other creators that want to start utilizing the platform that we have built. We talk about radical transparency, but when I meet with foundations or billionaires, I tell them that we won't just give you our 990s, we'll give you a login to our QuickBooks account because I have absolutely nothing to hide. I'm proud of the way that we run it. Creators are starting to approach us now and saying that they want to utilize the infrastructure that we built. They want to learn from the lessons that we have learned. They want to know how to pick the right charities. They want to know how to do this. Also, we have the opportunity to expand this to a much bigger organization. But I need resources for all of that as well. So we're always looking. We have a unique opportunity in that we can sell advertising space in our videos. So if there's anybody out there that has a business that wants to promote their business to an audience of 25 to 45 million people, and they spend it with us, we're the only organization that I know that will take 100% of that, put it into helping build a better world, and using that as an example to other people for what they can do. So if you know somebody who wants to advertise, that would be great. I don't want to take the donations away from EA or any of your charities, but we could use money as well. Jimmy's really generous, but at this point, he shouldn't be the one shouldering the entire burden himself for what we are doing. It's a much bigger, more important project than what we originally anticipated.
Maybe related to this question, you mentioned other content creators. Someone asked, let me see, Ludwig Bald, forum user, asked, what advice would you have for other people, filmmakers or people making content for YouTube who want to spread the ideas of effective charity and encourage giving, and what would you say they should focus on if that's what they want to do as well?
Question. When we started, when Jimmy originally asked me to do this, we didn't know. It was an idea. Let's see if we can use YouTube to generate revenue to do something good in the world. I don't know if your audience understands how big social media is and how incredibly profitable it is, but I'll put it this way. The Super Bowl got 117 million views last year. Just about every video that Jimmy does now gets 150 million or more views. You start realizing how big it actually is. If you look at every single person that's ever watched the Super Bowl since it started in 1968, it comes out to 4.2 billion people. We get 3.3 billion views a month. There are 3 billion to 3.3 billion views a month right now on main channel alone. Like, these numbers are staggering. There's a lot of people that spend a lot of time analyzing everything in social media trends. They analyze the thumbnails on a video and what colors appeal to people, what's going to make a person click on your video rather than another video, what keywords in the title perform best on YouTube. So there's a lot of companies that are doing a lot of data analysis on this, and we went to 4 of them when we were contemplating this, and we said we want to start a philanthropy-based channel. What do you think? And all 4 of them came up to us, and they came back to us and said, this is the worst idea we've ever heard. This is absolutely guaranteed it's going to fail. Charity is boring and depressing. People do not care about it, and you're not going to get any engagement. They come to social media when they're bored and they want to be entertained. Well, the only word that I heard them say was entertained. I thought, okay, we've got to figure out a way that we give people content that they're going to enjoy watching, that they're going to make the choice to watch. And I was going through something with some of my colleagues just before this call, and we're going and we're looking at some of the biggest charities in the world, and we're going to their YouTube channels and looking at the number of followers that they have. And one of the biggest charities in the country had cumulative total of followers on their channel less than what we added last week in subscribers. Their videos have literally had, some of them less than 100 views. Some of them had maybe a couple hundred views. Some of them had like 3 or 4 million views over the last 7 years. But this is the thing: entertain people, give them a reason to watch. Don't a video that is essentially just a PowerPoint presentation with bullet points. It's boring. Don't lecture people. Don't depress them. Don't make them care about the issue. Entertain them with it. Convince them subtly about the thing, and leave them feeling uplifted. That give people a reason to watch a video by their own volition, and not because you're asking them to watch a video. We're sitting with them and say, hey, watch this video that we just made, and they sit there just waiting for it to be over. And then when you understand how YouTube works as well, YouTube is measuring people's engagement with the video the whole way through. How many people are given an impression of the thumbnail? How many people clicked on that thumbnail? How many people watched the video? What portion of the video did they watch? How quickly did they abandon it? If people start watching a video and then they abandon it, the algorithm deprioritizes and it stops giving impressions. You're not going to get a chance for a person to click on it if YouTube's not serving it up. So focus on giving a person a reason to watch your video, and then they'll watch it. But it can't be you try to force down your talking points or whatever down their throat. It's not going to work.
That was kind of a niche question that I had. Was I'm curious if you know off the top of your head any stats around how many people do watch most of the videos that, because some people I know that it can drop off, but I'm curious, on your videos on average, do people watch most of it, or is it about half, or
It varies. But the statistics, it's amazing when you have massive engagements, how you can see on every single one, the statistics always trend to the same levels, and they're usually 30% of the people will abandon the video in the first 30 seconds. Because people will click on a video, see what the intro is, and you've got to try and hook them in that first 30 seconds, and then carry them through. Jimmy's an absolute master at that. Jimmy, the retention in the video, how to build the suspense, how to keep them engaged with it. It's a little bit harder to do with charity, because I think that people realize at this point, they see the problem and they know that by the end of the video we've got to solve it. We will have solved it, So it's a little bit more tricky, but there are certain things that we can do, and always talking to our analysts and creative people about like how can we keep the audience engaged. But um, the YouTube, it's called the average view duration gets measured, and you want to get people to the end, and it's easy when there's a competition on main channel and people want to see who wins the competition at the end. And that's easy to keep them engaged, but we're still trying to figure it out. We haven't perfected everything. We're very far ahead of the pack, and we don't withhold any of the information. I'll share anything that we have figured out with any charities, because I want to see them build their engagement. I want to see them build support. Um, so I think it would be profoundly selfish for us to hold back the information that we have. Um, we'll share it, but we're still evolving. We're still working it out. Nobody has ever done this before. There's not a path to follow. Um, there's not this works and this doesn't work. We have to keep on trying new things, and we get better and better at it with every video. One of the things that we found that works really well is you don't go there and start a video and say, there's a billion people around the world who don't have access to clean drinking water. Rather start by showing uh, kids and get them to like those kids, get them to care about those kids, see that they're sweet children that are so excited and welcoming and friendly and everything. And then when they care about those kids and they see those kids drinking out of a dirty river, now, like I said earlier, they've attached to those kids. They feel bad for them. And then later on, all around the world. In all of the videos, you'll find that we focus on 2 or 3 characters that illustrate the story, but that we can demonstrate the issue in human terms rather than academic terms and bullet points. Nobody cares about that.
Yeah, and it also sounds like what you're saying maybe is like that if you ground it in the human connection, then you can share the data. Or, if it's like, wow, a billion people are affected by this, did you know that? Then maybe that seems to resonate more when you feel like they've already had the sort of setup. Gotcha.
Well, when if we started with there's a billion people, people don't, it doesn't sink in without access to water. But if you show them a small population, if you show them 1 or 2 on the cleft palate thing, like we focused mostly on one father's experience with his young son and what he had to go through to get his son there, and how worried he was, and you get the audience to feel a connection to the father and what he's going through. Then it resonates much more because people understand the issue differently.
Well, that's the questions that I have. And just I want to say a very big thank you. Thank you for letting us pick your brain and hear more about the work that you do. A lot of this resonates, and yeah, it's been very cool to hear more about your work.
Well, I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing, and very grateful to all of your followers for being the people that actually do step up and show an interest and try to make a difference. Let's spread the message. Let's get other people to start caring about things, and see if we can't build engagement. I think that I actually think that we will in the long run. We will have tens of millions of kids that will grow up into adults that are a little bit more inclined to give it a little bit more than they would have. And I see that as the best path forward for humanity. Spread it and bring your friends around when you go. If you're going to go volunteer, invite your friends to come with you, get them involved. Help flip that switch. It's the easiest thing in the world. I was telling somebody the other night, it's like if you've never tasted a food, and somebody says, here, taste this, and you taste it, and you're like, oh my God, that was really good. And now you like that food, and you'll go buy it the rest of your life, Charity is exactly the same way. Most people have not tasted it. Just give them that first taste. Let them do something. And charity isn't just clicking on a link somewhere and confirming that you're saying $50. Charity, rather go and buy a blanket for somebody who's freezing in the cold outside, and then you understand what it means. And once you do that once, it's easy. It's a decision that you've made that will affect you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Thank you so
Well,
much.